talked a lot, and I think we've done perhaps more than most in pointing out some of these rogue educators across our public school system. But really, the more and more stories we do, we start to have this realization that maybe it's not rogue educators. Maybe it's educators who are doing exactly what the system wants them to do. Just a couple of the major stories we've done, some exclusives in the last 2 years that you all will be familiar with by now. We did a story on a teacher named Jennifer Knight, an elementary teacher in the Olympia School District, whose student suddenly was coming to school, a biological girl, was saying she was a boy, felt like she was definitely indoctrinated to do that based on everything we know. And this teacher, Jennifer Knight, was carrying on a private, secretive communication with this student saying, I kept emailing you. I was worried your mom interfered. I would take you into my home anytime you need, directing the student, make sure this email is deleted when we're done. Otherwise, when your mom looks, you'll be outed instantly. I mean, completely inappropriate. So we did that story. We were never able to find out. We were never told what, if any, discipline Jennifer Knight received from the Olympia School District. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago where we started a series of stories on a 7th and 8th grade math and science teacher in the Olympia School District named Karina Champion, who a 6th grader recorded going on some crazy rant about Ronald Reagan and Trayvon Martin. Here's a short clip of that.
A white supremacist was following him in his truck and yelling at him, and then got out and killed him.
And come to find out that that wasn't the first time Karina Champion had done something crazy in one of her classes. She brought a dildo to class in 2019 for a sex ed lesson parents hadn't even been told was coming up. And there was other things in the class that students came out and told their parents about. One of the things talking about, ways to avoid getting pregnant, having the other type of sex that can't result in pregnancy, and then sterilization. Didn't even talk about abstinence as a way to avoid getting pregnant. Talked about permanent sterilization to 7th graders, medical sterilization, and then talked about, backdoor sex as a way to, sorry, Nicole's looking at me. I don't know if I can say the word. I can't afford any YouTube strikes right now. So to 7th graders. I mean, and I believe the kids, given her history, I absolutely believe everything the kids have to say about what she said in that class. And we don't know. We know that Karina Champion managed to keep her job after that sex ed lesson, if you can even call it that. And we don't even, after we revealed the story of what happened in when she visited a 6th grade science class to teach them, give them a presentation on making a quilt about bugs and plants, and it turned into a rant about Ronald Reagan's a homophobe and Trayvon Martin was killed by a white supremacist. We don't know if she's going to be disciplined. We don't know what the extent of that discipline would be, despite her clearly violating some district policies on controversial lessons. So that brings us to our guest today. We've had Alesha Perkins on the show many times. So Alesha Perkins grew up in the Olympia School District, went there herself, I don't know if she still has kids. Did her final kid graduate, or are they still in school? I think she sent several kids through the Olympia School District. I think she might still have one in the Olympia School District. And one of the things she's been looking into is just how difficult it is for parents to pursue any sort of complaint or discipline against a teacher who might blatantly violate policies. And it turns out if you're a parent who's concerned, there aren't a lot of tools at your disposal to be able to hold teachers accountable. Alesha Perkins, welcome back to unDivided.
Thanks, Brandi.
Yeah, before we dive into this important topic, I've got to ruin your day a little bit. You ready?
Yes.
Oh, wow, she's very eager. She's like, yes, ruin my day. Well, people might not know this, but sometimes you have a place in Idaho, so you'll go there, in the summer and stuff. Did you know that you might get a new neighbor?
Oh, I think I read that this morning, and I was like, it can't be true.
Inslee, your new neighbor is going to be Jay Inslee. Allegedly, He's going to retire in Idaho.
Yes, my stomach sank a little bit when I read that.
I figured, here you think you're getting away from it all. Nope, he's going to follow you. So, maybe he'll buy the house right next to yours. I don't know. So just wanted to let you know about that. So we obviously have done, and really not without you. I don't think any of the stories that we've done on the Olympia School District would have been possible without your connections that you have with parents and students and teachers. So we thank you for that. But, I think one of the lingering questions we always have when we do these stories, like Karina Champion and, every crazy stuff going on with her, is what happens to the teachers? We're never allowed to know. Parents tell us that they aren't allowed to know. So from everything that you've dug into and all the stories that you've uncovered, is there any way to find out, besides just through like the rumor grapevine, is there any way to know what disciplinary action has been taken against a teacher, if any?
Not really. The only way to know is to maybe get investigation reports like came out with Champion, where the investigators did find that she was in violation of certain things. But beyond that, when it goes to what the consequences are with the school district, they will not tell us. And, for parents who've tried to go beyond the school district to, for example, report a teacher, when the school district will just do nothing, what they have found is there's an absolute dead end. So, for example, if you try to go to OSPI at the state level to report a teacher, it looks like there's a way to report, but then what it actually says is the only people that can open up an investigation is the school superintendent.
Wow.
So if you're in a school district like ours, where, we have teachers with obviously multiple violations of several things who have been found in violation of several things, it really dies with the school district.
Yeah. So parents can request it, but a request from a parent to investigate a teacher doesn't mean anything if the superintendent doesn't want to investigate them.
That's correct.
And I think what's troubling about that in Olympia, for instance, the stories we've covered are just the tip of the iceberg. And from my perspective, and you can feel free to disagree, it seems like the school district there is fine with what these teachers are doing and maybe even encourages it. So I don't have a lot of faith, I guess, that the school that has fostered this environment would turn around and hold teachers accountable for being part of that environment.
Well, you're exactly right. And that's what I found after almost 2 years of doing this, is that we really have a school district that has been taken over, I would say infiltrated by a very, very radical school board. And to their credit, they have been elected. So the community is responsible for some of this. But, we have 5 school board directors that are radically political, that have made very clear, no secret about their intention to push social activism in school. And I can give you a couple examples that I pulled up of
Please.
Some of the board statements. We have Scott Cliftorn, one of our board directors, who recently in April said he ran because Trumpism was taking over schools. He goes on to say that people are complaining about the board's woke politics making people leave the district, and reminds us that they were elected to be at the front, so it's not stopping. He then says, if anyone has a problem with that because you don't want to be in a school district where those are the values, then bye. And he waves at the camera.
As long as I'm in this community, the pride proclamations are going to keep happening. The Black Lives Matter proclamations are going to keep happening. We will continue to invest in these schools until they're safe and equitable places for all students, irrespective of their color, their skin, their gender identity and gender expression. And if anyone has a problem with that, because you don't want to be in a school district where those are the values, bye.
Wow.
So openly taunting people to leave. We have a school board director who released a video before her election in November, Jess Palumbo, doing an anti-police rant for about 2 minutes.
Law enforcement and SROs come from the seed of racism, and you can rename them something, and you can try to create different branches, but if that seed is still there, it's going to create the same problem.
She went to an anti-police rally in November put on by students where they were screaming at the police. She got on the microphone and said she fully supported everyone there. Our board president last year said it's their paramount duty to raise activists. One of our school board directors, posts on social media, her dressed up as Handmaid's Tale and RBG. So, I could go on and on and on with what our school board has directly said, that they're about. And then if you look at teacher quotes, I just did a quick search for some teacher quotes on their own bios that you can see on the district website. They make perfectly clear that they're supported by the board with doing activism in class. One of the teachers said, when parents, families, community members show up to complain about any lessons that bring up equity or the 13 pillars of BLM movement, I have an easy and solid defense that we are supported by the school board. And I can name, many other exampps where
I'm sorry, Alesha,
teachers...
that line you just read, that is something a teacher wrote? That was a quote?
Yes, that is a quote on a public social media page that was discussing parents who had an issue with some of the BLM teaching. And I can tell you what some of those are. This went out from the teaching and learning department at the Olympia School District for teachers to teach. And this was for BLM curriculum. When you open the curriculum, which I did and read through all of it, they start with their foundation. Their foundation is a collective guided by core principles that are grounded in Black feminist framework, Black, queer, feminist, anti-capitalist politics, abolitionist politics, and approach to restorative and transformative justice. It goes on to say teaching is activism. They go through their 13 principles that are supposed to be taught to the kids. I mean, just a couple of them are, we need not qualify our position. First of all, they say, we oppose the practice that demands double duty, where one is expected to parent, but also engage in public work. We disrupt the narrow Western prescribed nuclear family. Trans affirming, we do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege. We uplift Black trans folks, especially Black trans women. Queer affirming, we want to remove the tight grip of cis hetero patriarchal assumptions. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, where any reasonable person would say, hey, this seems like there should be a different viewpoint, here. It goes on to say, from a teacher, I teach math and science. How can I integrate this into my teaching? And the answer is, you can use numbers and maps to look at the impacts of housing discrimination, low minimum wage, and the school to prison pipeline. You can ask your students how to think about ways to solve deep social problems. How can we reduce the number of losses to police violence? What are ways to end poverty? It's also an opportunity to introduce activism, privilege, and public policy. I mean, these are things that are actively being put out by the teaching and learning department of the Olympia School District for teachers to teach. So, this isn't a secret, is what I'm saying.
It's baked in, and that, it almost, so we can focus on the individual teachers and things that they might do, but when you realize that that's what they're being told and encouraged to do, it becomes a much bigger issue, and it really, I think, weakens any expectation that rogue teachers, quote unquote, would be held accountable, because they're not rogue teachers. That's kind of the takeaway. It's like, no, these aren't rogue teachers. These are teachers doing exactly what the district is encouraging them to do. One other question on that, Alesha. The two, Jennifer Knight and Karina Champion, two of the teachers we've highlighted the most out of the Olympia School District, they're also union representatives. So is there a concern amongst parents that might hamper or have hampered the accountability for them specifically?
Well, what I have heard from other staff, other teachers, is that this becomes problematic, because if another teacher, say, has an issue with some of this, you then have to look at somebody like Karina Champion to represent you. And, but it's unfortunate because, I keep saying these types of things are further perpetuating the idea that I think is correct, that teachers' unions have been really taken over by activism. I personally don't believe that this represents all the teachers. I think a lot of the teachers don't even know what's going on at some of the higher levels of the union, but it's unfortunate,
Well, what I'd like to see is a teacher, just for the fun of it, go on some tirade against Democrats and talk about Donald Trump and all these conservative principles, and then see if Karina Champion is going to come to their defense, when someone invariably complains about it, because I just don't think it would be treated in the same way. And neither of them are acceptable. But I mean, I just don't see them just being like, oh yeah, you can talk about your love for Donald Trump in a 6th grade science class, like no big deal. Just one quick thing before we let you go. We obviously did the story on Karina Champion, and then going back to 2019, her bringing a dildo to a sex ed class that parents hadn't even been told about. You've been able to speak in your independent reporting to 2 or 3 students who were in that class. Did you learn anything from them that we hadn't known or hadn't been public?
Yeah, I had actually multiple parents, multiple staff members, and multiple students reach out to me, and I interviewed 2 of the students, And it went way beyond a classroom where an inappropriate sex lesson happened. The things that they told me are shocking. And some examples are, she used her own stash of condoms and told the kids this is from when she was married to her husband. She had them draw pictures of penises and vaginas. She shared endlessly about her divorce and new LGBTQ relationships, her sexualities. She told the boys in the class that if they wake up with a, quote, BONER, to just rub it out. She talked to the class about her period, how she hates Trump, white men, toxic masculinity, bringing her young son to school and having students babysit him. I mean, I can't make this stuff up, Brandi, and it's been corroborated by multiple people. She had a Vegas rule, which was what happens in this class stays in this class.
Okay. So you're saying multiple students who were in her class have confirmed these details to you?
Yes.
It's disgusting.
Yes.
How is that? In what environment would any parent defend that? Would any school defend that? And, I saw the investigative report on the dildo class thing, and she's saying, well, I didn't bring it up. Some kid shouted it. I don't believe her for a second. She has a pattern of behavior. Take one look at her social media accounts. I believe every single thing that the kids have said. There's no reason for them to make it up. Some of this stuff, kids that age, I don't see how they would make it up. I don't see how it would come out of their mind. So that's wild. And I mean, please follow up with us, as I know that you have these connections with students and teachers, and we'd love to hear what else comes out of this. So, Alesha Perkins, we started the interview with me ruining your day, and we've ended the interview with you ruining my day. So,
can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of these parents are being told, well, you just need to sue the school district.
Yeah.
And, and that may be true, but, it is very concerning that we're at a point where a parent has to hire an attorney for potentially thousands of dollars to just get a school district to follow its own policies and laws. There should be checks and balances. Somebody else should be stepping in to say something is deeply wrong here. It should not be up to a parent to do this. I'm not saying they will not, but that is, it's hard to understand that that's the place that we're at.
Oh, I agree 100%, especially with 2081. And just really quickly on that, because we've actually heard from a couple parents who, they're like, well, I'd love to sue, but I can't even find an attorney who will take a case or, has like, that go against the teachers union or whatever it is. Have you heard that from parents as well, that they don't even have an attorney that they feel like they can turn to?
Well, many of the local attorneys, have a conflict of interest. They may have students in the district themselves, so they don't want to end up suing a district. Many of the attorneys have been very clear that, look, this isn't a money case. It's more of a crusade case, getting a school district to abide by its own policies or follow the law. And it's unfortunate because I would hope that some of the more nonprofits who are, working to get some of this stuff corrected would step up.
Oh, 100%.
Deal with some of this.
There are a ton of cause law firms out there. We have them on the show all the time. So if anybody is watching this segment and wants to take on a cause case that might not be a money case, please.
They've got one.
You've got one?
No, they have. Oh. They would have one if they. No, they would. A cause case with an organization, they would definitely have that.
Okay, all right. So there's the call to action. So if anybody wants to step up to the plate, any group wants to step up to the plate, get in touch with us. We can put you in touch with Alesha. Alesha, thank you so much as usual.
Thanks, Brandi.
All I can do not to drink cyanide every time Alesha's on the show and just be like, hang it up.
Wow.
And this is where we flash the suicide hotline number, which we'll add in post-editing. I'm kidding, of course. But look, do you see what's happening here? There's some good, as tragic as all that is, there's some good things happening here. So what have we been seeing? And on this show is just a small taste of it. Parents speaking up. You have kids now speaking to Alesha, telling them what happened. We've received multiple emails from parents willing to speak up about Karina Champion or other issues they're having in the Olympia School District. And this stuff is not relegated to the Olympia School District. It's happening elsewhere as well. But you see what happens when there's one teacher willing to speak or one parent willing to speak, then there's multiple parents willing to speak. We're trying to get some students on the record, et cetera, et cetera. And now what do they need? They need a law firm to take up the case. They need a lawyer who is willing to sue the Olympia School District or OSPI or both to try to make sure they're holding teachers accountable for their behavior, and that it's not enough for the school district, which is obviously ideologically driven, to say, we're not going to do anything about that. No, there are rules on the books for a reason that teachers are supposed to abide by. We deserve to know that teachers who break those rules are actually facing consequences. So you've had parents who've done the hard work. You've had students who have done the hard work. We wouldn't even know about Krina Champion had a 6th grader and not recorded her in class. So they're speaking up. Now we need an attorney or a law firm who's willing to take this across the finish line. And this is how we push for positive change in our schools. I just want to mention it quick because it's just full of good information like this. Alesha Perkins has a Substack. It's called OSD Rescue. If you're interested in reading, she puts out really good in-depth work with sources, with source documents and all of that stuff. So please check out her Substack, OSD Rescue.